All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamal Walker, and you are tuning in to the Love Heart Project. I want to thank you for joining in on this interview. The Love Heart Project has two purposes. One is to give voice and a platform to white allies of Black and brown skin people who want to share their heart about what they're seeing in our world as it relates to racism in our country and how they feel about that and their connection to Black and brown skinned people. Also, the Love Heart Project hopes to demonstrate that through outward and purposeful expressions of love and a deep desire for connection with Black and brown skinned people, that the love vibration will become so strong that any refusal to connect with its frequency will become too painful for the heart to bear. And that's why we're here, to help increase that love vibration, that love frequency. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend Jen Roberts, who also happens to be my neighbor across the street from me. Yeah. So she's sitting over there in her place, I'm sitting in my place, and we're doing the social distancing, but we're still gonna increase that love vibration through the digital domain. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much, Jamal.
All right. So let's start, Jen, by just sharing with everyone a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and who is Jen Roberts?
Well, let's see. I have been living here in Grass Valley for about 10 years. I'm married. I have two boys, teenagers, and I grew up in LA, went to a small private school there for my whole life. Have a lot of family in New York, and so I still go back and forth, and the work that I do is based there. So a little bit of a bi-coastal thing happening. Before we lived here, I lived in Berkeley. I went to UC Berkeley and lived there for another 7 or 8 years after I graduated. Met my husband, Sebastian, and we decided we needed to get out of the Bay Area. That was in the 90s, late 90s, and it was already feeling pretty crazy and congested and super .commie. And so we moved up north to the Mendocino coast and lived there for 10 years, which was where our two kids were also born. So we like small towns, I guess I mean to say by that, but I also have, growing up in cities and metropolitan areas. So I'm a little bit of a country mouse, city mouse person.
I can relate to that.
Uh-huh.
All right. So just tell everyone a little bit about what your connection with me is.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, we're neighbors. I can't remember if you moved here first or did we? I don't remember, but
no, I think you guys were already here when we moved here on this street anyway. Yeah. I've been in Grass Valley for 30 years, but we've been on this block for 7 years.
Okay, right. So yeah, I know you as a neighbor, as a community activist and leader, as a DJ, and a fellow parent. Your youngest son is about the same age as my oldest son. So yeah. They actually were on the soccer team together for a couple of years. He was the trainer.
Yeah.
That was cool that they had that overlap. And I also know you from when you were managing Summertimes. And
that's right.
Great food there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So what made you decide to become a part of the Love Heart Project?
Oh, man. Just the craziness and the intensity of the events and emotions lately. And basically, I mean, when you approached me and asked if I would do it, that was an automatic yes, because I've been feeling so upset and so wanting to help make change. And I'm honored that you consider me an ally. And honestly, it's always been hard for me to speak my mind sometimes, and I tend to not say anything out of fear of saying the wrong thing. So thank you for pushing me to do this, and we'll see how it goes.
Right on. Well, you're doing great so far.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so now we'll move into the body of the interview here with that background. So what comes to mind for you when you think about all of the current events surrounding the murder of George Floyd, and also like the responses from the president, and the tweets and the different things that he's been saying? How have you been impacted by all this personally?
Yeah.
Just like totally be in that heart space, like what is love saying to you? What is your heart saying to you about all that?
It's just so much sadness and anger that this is the country that I consider my country. And I know we don't want to be political in this discussion right now, but there's no way to avoid it. I mean, the last 4 years of Trump's presidency, things have just he's pouring gasoline on the fire every single day. And this culmination, it feels like, in some ways it's a culmination, and yet the racial violence and the police brutality has been happening since the beginning of our nation. And it gets suppressed and it kind of goes away and it's out of the news for a little while, but it's really always been there. And what happened last week, the kind of double whammy of the Amy Cooper confrontation in Central Park, the bird watcher. Mm-hmm. That video came out on the same day or maybe next day that we learned of George Floyd's murder. And this was, a week or two after Ahmaud Arbery. And just all of it was like a truckload of bricks that just was like really crushing. And I'm just speaking for me, I, as a white person watching this stuff and thinking of the pain that Black people must be feeling as they see this stuff happening. It's just like, I don't know. I guess I'm an empathetic person, and it's feeling the empathy for my fellow Black brothers and sisters, and also just the outrage and disgust that I feel towards white people that perpetrated this. Just really, really intense. I found myself crying a lot. And but that doesn't do any good, really. And so trying to figure out how to be more active to change this awful situation that we're in.
Yeah. Thank you. And, I just want to reiterate to you as well that this is one of the ways that we do it. We share our truth, we share our heart, and have a willingness to let that be known. As like I told you before, we'll be sharing these videos via social media and any other vehicle that we can find to share them, because I think that when we open up and we speak our truth, it gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah.
And raising that love frequency and that love vibration is what it's all about. And I'm sure there'll be other ways that, will become apparent to all of us, of what to do, how we can make changes, within the law. And, but it really begins, I think, Jen, with changing hearts and minds.
Yes,
You know, we can change laws, but if people's minds and hearts don't change, the same things continue to happen.
for sure.
So that's what I'm hoping for. Um,
Yeah.
so on this question of racism, why does this issue of racism matter to you personally?
I realize that I've had it easy, and that's my white privilege, that's what I get to experience as a white person, is just a level of ease and safety moving through the world. And when that's only given to some people in our society, it impacts everyone's well-being. It really does. That it keeps us separate from each other. It keeps us from being able to connect and share experiences. If me walking through town is fun and relaxing and I feel welcome, but you're walking through town and you feel like you're being watched or tracked or suspected, then we're not having a shared experience, and we're not getting the same things out of our lives and out of our communities. And now more than ever, I think it's just so clear that we are really all connected. None of these issues are separate issues. With COVID right now, it's impacting everyone. There is no one that is not having to change major aspects of their lives, their work, but it's still a different experience. I heard someone say, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And that's just so clear right now. And, as far as healthcare goes, our healthcare system is so broken and so stratified that we can only ever be as healthy as the sickest person in our community, right? I mean, that is literally true now. So I think the same goes for all aspects of our society. And I just, there's so much we can learn from each other, and life can be so much richer if we can interact and share our experiences with people of different colors and backgrounds. And it's boring to just be stuck in the same thing, in the same bubble all the time. Traveling is so important, having new experiences, and that is part of getting more racial equity in our world.
Yeah,
is that possible?
Yeah, right on. Thank you. So this is kind of an imaginal piece. You can take this kind of wherever you want to. But if we were to think of, take this question of racism, and if you were able to put a diagnosis to it, what would be your diagnosis of what it is?
Well, it's definitely a chronic condition, an ongoing sickness that right now is at an emergency level. Like if you were to have an acute illness that you need immediate medical attention, I feel like that's where we're at with it. I don't know, it's a sickness of, I think a lot of the sickness relates to words and language and terminology that we've been using. I suppose all of us, but especially white folks around race, that I think part of what's important right now is to re-examine the words that we're using and the terminology. Anyway, I kind of veered off of your question about what is the diagnosis.
Well, you started with it with being chronic, and I thought that was brilliant, that it's a chronic illness, and you also said that it's acute.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could say more about the acute nature of it. When you say that, what does that mean for you?
That it's life-threatening right now. It's been this chronic illness that we've all been living with for a long time. That's what a chronic illness is, right? It's something that is there, but you can manage it, and flares up sometimes. And this is definitely a flare-up, a major flare-up. And I think the protests that we've been seeing and the riots are really, while they're simultaneously really scary, they're also really inspiring. And most of them have been peaceful. There's definitely violence and looting and some of that's happening, but there are millions and millions of people out there. I keep seeing stories and pictures of huge crowds that are supporting each other and listening and doing it right. And that's really encouraging. That's the part of the cure. There's so much that needs to happen. There's no one magic drug that we can take that's going to fix this, because it's, as a chronic illness, it's been building for so long, and our societal structures are built in a way to perpetuate this illness. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a lot of undoing and remaking to get healthy again.
Yeah,
to get healthy for the first time, really.
Right. Yeah.
Create a new healthy world.
Yeah, right on. Thank you. So, what does the concept of white supremacy mean to you, and how does it benefit you, and how does it harm you?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. These two questions that are coming: the white supremacy versus white privilege. White supremacy is it's just a horrifying term. I hear that and I'm like, oh, that is not me. I would never do that. That is, that's Nazis, that's the Klan, that's David Duke, that's like these like monstrous people that I cannot relate to, would never do any of those things. And so, I have this like this gut reaction that that's evil, that's horrible. But sitting with that and thinking with it, what that really means is white supremacy is what built this nation. That's how our government and our laws and our policy were rooted in from the very beginning. And so we do exist in a white supremacist society, even for someone like me that feels, progressive and open and an ally and all those nice words. I've benefited from that system simply by not having obstacles in my way. Just, having an opportunity to get a credit card easily, to get a mortgage for my house, to, be given the benefit of a doubt in a job interview. Just, these things are just baked in. And
I like that term. They're baked in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
So white supremacy is, I would like to think that I don't benefit in any way from that. But I think the sad truth is that all white people actually have, just by having life been a little easier, in general. I'm speaking in generalities here, of course, but yeah, and no doubt it does much more harm than good, the overt white supremacy and the violence and brutality. that has been going on forever.
Yeah, and when I say how, how does it harm you? I'm wondering, like, how do you think about it in terms of how it harms you personally? That kind of system of, automatically having certain benefits simply because of, the body that you were born into.
How does it harm me? It creates fear and violence that affects everyone, not just the narrow targets of it. I don't want to live in a world where people are assaulted and murdered and hunted based on their skin color. That's terrifying to me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And, we kind of touched on white privilege, and, it's like white privilege is sort of a byproduct of white supremacy, right?
Right.
But if you were to talk about white privilege as a singular concept by itself, how do you say a little bit more about how you identify that you indeed have it? What are the differences between you that you can identify between someone who's white and someone like me who is Black in terms of experiences in the world?
Well, going back to the kind of thing I was just talking about, just certain financial benefits and the ease of, being able to get a good education, having opportunities to go to college. This is reminding me of that Amy Cooper phone call again, back to that story where she called 911 and basically filed a false police report and said that she was being threatened by a Black man. Watching that and seeing her use her white privilege as a weapon was super nauseating to me, because it's out there and it happens in more subtle ways all the time, but watching her do that with the full knowledge that she could use that as a threat and a weapon against him was really, and that it just came so naturally and so easily out of her mouth was really a wake-up call. Like, it's not just about financial stuff and getting to have a comfortable life or that kind of thing. It's really so much more insidious than that. And I think we as white people need to really, really look at that and understand that is a reality that is true for us, even if we don't want to look at it or think of it that way. I mean, another thing, I was talking with my dad recently about this and talking about white privilege specifically, and he was like, yeah, we have an option to kind of just look away or not have to deal with racism if it's uncomfortable. We can just, it's possible to just kind of push it aside and not really look at it, kind of opt out.
Yeah, that's
dealing with racism and as a white person, even if we think, oh, I'm not racist. That's another thing I want to talk about, is that term, not racist. But
go for it, because that's part of it. That's part of the privilege, right?
Right. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this very clearly or as succinctly, but I've just started reading Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, this one. And the beginning of the book is a lot about definitions of words and defining racism versus anti-racism. And he makes the point that there really isn't such a thing as not racist in our society because of the history of the way our politics and government and systems are built. They are inherently racist. So you can be a racist or you can be an anti-racist to work against those things, but being a non-racist is this kind of meaningless middle ground that's really a cop-out, really. It's saying, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to look at the racist stuff, but I'm not actually going to do anything to fix it either. So that's some language that I think is really interesting and really important as we move forward and address all of this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add to that, or I
don't know. Let me just glance at my notes here.
While you're glancing at your notes, I'll just let our viewers know that, I have all the people that I connect with that want to be a part of the Love Heart Project. I send them the questions in advance, simply because I want people to have an opportunity to really spend some time thinking about them. And, I'm not about, like trying to set anybody up, to take a fall for anything. This is really about, how do we feel about all this stuff? And, if we really want to increase the love vibration, then, we got to be willing to hear from people and also give people an opportunity to really think about, about these questions deeply so that we can answer them, in a heartfelt way. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jamal, for that, for the questions and for the opportunity and for putting yourself out there. I mean, you say this is a platform for white folks to share their thoughts and feelings about all this. And ironically, I feel like we've always had the platform. Like, why are you still giving us a platform? But I do know what you're trying to do, and I recognize that, and it's really important, and I appreciate that. And all this stuff I'm saying, I don't know how it sounds or if I'm using the right words or not, or saying something that sounds really idiotic, but I'm just trying, trying to educate myself and really be part of the solution. Mm-hmm. and follow your lead and other Black leaders and listen to what they're asking for and how we can help.
Yeah. And, I'm really glad that you mentioned, why are we still giving you a platform? And, I feel like this is a different kind of a platform in the sense that, one of the things that I see, one of the other deleterious effects of racism is that white people who really do understand what's happening and see what's happening and want to make a difference often don't, in my opinion, don't get an opportunity to share from the heart that desire to do that. And, because of the wounding that a lot of us Black and brown people have experienced, we've kind of developed this attitude of we don't want to hear from y'all. And so, it's more of that division and that lack of connection. And so the reason why I decided to do this is so that we can start to bridge that gap. And we have to do that, in my opinion, through the love frequency. And so, anything that we can do that takes us out of our heads, takes us out of our egos, and our wounding, if we can step outside of our wounding enough, then we can make the change and be the change that we are wanting to see. And also, for me, it's a way of combating what we previously, at least, have been seeing in the media, where you just never hear about white people who are like in the struggle, wanting to be a part of the struggle with people, doing everything that they can to help. Everything gets shown in the media that, like, the way that I see it, the way I've seen it go down is just like, oh God, Black people are whining again. It's kind of like that's what you're left with the media. And so this is a way for me to kind of, use the platform of social media and Zoom, of course, we're on Zoom here, to share the fact that, like, what, that's only part of the story. We got a whole lot of people out there that are like saying, no, we're done too. We're done with seeing all this. We want to be more active in helping and sharing your heart. When we share our heart and we share our stories, it comes across different. If I could allude to, when I came over and met with you the other day,
mm-hmm.
and, I was asking you if you wanted to be a part of this, and, you just broke down, and it wasn't so much that I saw your tears as it was that I saw your heart through those tears. I saw your heart. I was looking at you like, damn, I almost looked like, somebody in your own family just passed away. And that kind of connection to what's happening is really important. And I saw that in you. And that gave me even more confidence when I asked you if you wanted to be involved, because I really did feel your heart in seeing that. So the more that we can share that with the big wide world out here, like I said, it gives more and more permission for other people, other white people. And, we're keying on, white allies right now, but I'll eventually open this up to anybody who wants to share on it. But I think it's really important for Black and brown skinned people to really hear the hearts of our white allies. Not so much about content, but the heart. So I really, thank you for being willing to do that and being willing to show your heart. And that's what it's all about. That's why I call it the Love Heart Project. You know what I mean? It's all about sharing our hearts. So
yeah, that's it. Exactly, Jamal. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another little bit of an imaginal piece. You can even close your eyes for a moment if you want. So I want you to think about what Black and brown skinned people mean to you personally. Think of your relationships with Black and brown people, what you love about us, and what you know of the struggles that we have faced as a culture in America. Mm-hmm. And now imagine if you were sharing these thoughts with a crowd of white people, from all different backgrounds, and finish this sentence. If you only knew.
If you only knew how much richer life could be if we opened our eyes and our hearts and our minds to our Black and brown brothers and sisters, we would wonder why we were doing it wrong for so long. There's such a wealth of humor and love and strength and music and poetry out there that we're cut off from when we don't connect with people that look different from ourselves. It's a disservice to our own selves, to our children, our families, when we don't let that in.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So here's our last question. If you were to write a letter to George Floyd, what would it say?
Oh boy, it's going to make me cry again, I bet.
That's okay.
I'm sorry that we allowed our society to get this bad. There's no justification and no way to get your life back. But if you could see that millions of people are rising up in your name because of what our system did to you, I hope and I promise to work for justice for your murder. And I just pray that we are going to dismantle the racist policies of this country. Rest in peace, George.
Beautiful. Jen, thanks again so much for participating in the Love Heart Project. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jamal Walker, and I'm really grateful to be doing this work and bringing this to people. So we will see you for our next interview. Thank you, Jen. Love you very much.
Oh, love you too. I'm a crier. I cry very easily for all kinds of reasons. Not that this isn't incredibly powerful, but
that's all right. I'm a crier too.
Yeah.
Thanks again, and I'll see you around the neighborhood.
Great. Sounds good. See you soon.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.